right, folks. Thank you for being here for another Catching Up With. Our next guest, as I could tell from the cheers there, doesn't need an introduction here on this campus. He was the head coach of Notre Dame Football for 11 seasons, led the Fighting Irish to 100 wins, and 30 years ago led Notre Dame to an undefeated season in the 1988 National Championship. Please welcome Lou Holtz.
Thank you. Thank you. When you make that introduction, I wish you would say we won the national championship in 88, screwed in 89, 90, and 93 along with it.
Well, Lou, we want to talk about 88 and all the great wins here at Notre Dame, but we always like on Catching Up With to kind of start off at the beginning. So you grew up in East Liverpool, Ohio, and I know you were a Notre Dame fan from a very young age. What was it that initially attracted you to Notre Dame?
Well, when your father, your uncles, your grandpa, and the nuns, I was taught by the Sisters of Notre Dame, everybody prayed for Notre Dame. It was the school, and the fact that from 46 through 49, Notre Dame never lost a football game. They tied a couple, but they won them all. So it's just natural that you would cheer for Notre Dame. And there's just something magical about this place. You come on campus, it's the spirit, it's the lady on the dome, it's the grotto, it's the band playing, it's going to Mass at Sacred Heart. As I say to people, they say, tell me about Notre Dame. Now, Laura Ingram's a friend of mine. She's going to be here tomorrow because she wanted to see a football game. And I said, you got to come to Notre Dame. She said, that's where I want to go, so she's my guest here. But when you explain it, if you've been part of Notre Dame, no explanation is necessary. If you haven't been part of Notre Dame, no explanation will suffice. Unless you're here and you understand and you feel the spirit, it's just magical. I remember right after I left Notre Dame, my wife had cancer surgery, and I hope you remember in her prayers because she's not doing well, and this is the first time she's ever missed a Lou's lad. But I told her after surgery, you get your weight up to 112, I'll take you to the Holy Land. She always wanted to go there. So I'm speaking the first year I leave, and the students are all there. And I said to the students, they said, how's Mrs. Holtz? I said, thank you for asking. I told her if she gets her weight up to 112, I'm taking her to the Holy Land. The students got so excited, said, oh, that's great, Coach. You're going to bring her back to Notre Dame. I said, no, that is their mentality here.
You played college football at Kent State and graduated there. What was it, after you graduated college, decided, what you wanted to do with your life? What made you decide to go into coaching?
You want to make God laugh, you tell him what your plans are. Things just happen crazy. I got out of the Army, and I basically accepted a job at Conneaut High School. Now, the reason I went to college, nobody had ever gone to college, was my high school coach told my parents I should go to college. I said, I'm not. They said, you are. I said, I'm not. So we compromised, and I went. That was a typical compromise with my parents. So now I hurt my knee my senior year. I helped coach the freshmen. Unbeknownst to me, my college coach was in the Navy with Forrest Evashevsky in Iowa, and he called him and said, give him a graduate assistant. Let him see how a big-time program works. I don't know all this going on, but I'm going to get married. I'm going to get married. I'm going to be an assistant coach at Conneaut High School. I'm going to teach history and live happily ever after. July 9th, my wife said to me at 9:30 at night she didn't want to get married. She changed her mind. She wanted to date her old boyfriend. By 10:30, I had my good friend Neville Stockdale. We got my 52 Ford Fairlane, drove all night to Iowa to see if I could get a graduate assistant. I want to get as far away as I could, and that's when Neville made a great observation. He said, you and Beth have a love-hate relationship. You love her, she hates you. That was a love-hate relationship. So I end up in Iowa. We finish up second in the country, the last game of the year. We play Notre Dame right here. And I'm a graduate assistant on the sideline thinking, this is the height of my entire life, to be on the same field as Notre Dame. I'm on the wrong sideline. Never realizing that someday I would be the head coach at Notre Dame. So the reason when my wife broke up with me, that's why I ended up in college coaching, or I'd still be at Conneaut High School teaching history. But then she called me. She wanted to come see me, and that's when girls did call boys. And I said, I'm busy, and she started crying. I said, someday we'll get married. She said July 22nd. We just celebrated our 57th wedding anniversary.
All right.
So, which tells you one thing about me. I am an expert at following instructions. I know how to follow instructions. I've been well trained.
Well, you had a wonderful coaching career even before you got to Notre Dame with, head coaching stops at William & Mary, NC State, Arkansas, and Minnesota. But as you were progressing throughout your career and building a reputation for being, a program rebuilder and a really great big game coach, did you always have Notre Dame in the back of your mind that that's where you ultimately wanted to end up?
Well, when I first got into coaching, my goal was to coach against Notre Dame and coach a team that beat Notre Dame. And the reason, up until they hired Eric Parsegian, Notre Dame never hired anything except an alum from Notre Dame. And I was not smart enough to come to Notre Dame. I mean, I was in the lower third of a high school class. If it was not for people like me, there could have been no upper half of class. I just in the bottom of it. But it's amazing. Notre Dame didn't think I was smart enough to go to school here as a student. But they thought I was smart enough to coach here. So I guess you have to be smarter to be a student than a coach. But once they hired Eric Parsegian, then you thought, boy, how great it would be to be able to coach at the University of Notre Dame. Never thinking it would happen, but I think everybody has to have dreams and goals and believe in things. And as Mark Twain said, the two most important days in your life is one, the day you're born, and the other is the day you discover why you're born. And when you discover that you're basically born to help other people, to help them in different ways, and that's all you try to do in coaching. You try to help them, prepare them for life. You try to win. You try to have your objectives. But it was never like, wow, I'm going to be at Notre Dame. I never thought that would become a reality. But how I end up at Notre Dame is even stranger. I go to the University of Arkansas. I have the best 7 years, best one-loss record in the history of Arkansas. Second best one-loss record in the history of the Southwest Conference, only to Dare Royal. Graduated the athletes, ran a program, took our team to the Sugar, the Orange, the Fiesta, the Blue Bond Bowl. I mean, 6 bowl bids, and I got fired. And I came back from church, and Frank Broyles said, I want your resignation. I said, why? He said, being the best interest of the program would not give me a reason. I was so mad. I was so bitter. I was going to the media. I knew where all the bodies were buried in Arkansas. I was going to get even with that stuff. And my wife, in her infinite wisdom, said, no, we know what we did. We'll move on, and we did. And 2 years later, now this was told to me by Gene Corrigan that hired me. He called Frank Broyles. He said, we're looking for a football coach, and we wonder what happened with Lou Holtz. Frank Broyles said, I listened to somebody tell me something wasn't true. Dumbest thing I did was let him go. He said, he's the best coach I've been around. He's trying to hire me back, which he was. He sent me a blank contract. But he said, I know he's always wanted to coach at Notre Dame. If you can hire Lou Holtz, don't even talk to anybody else. You'll never regret it. The point is, because my wife did not allow me to be bitter, I had the opportunity to coach at Notre Dame, which was the greatest experience I ever had. So.
Well, Arkansas's loss was our gain. So you arrived at Notre Dame. It had been a rough couple of years on the football field, and fans were thirsty for a return to the top, which, as we said, you had a reputation for quickly rebuilding programs. What was the biggest challenge you faced as you looked to return Notre Dame to its kind of proper place at the top of college football?
Well, when Father Joyce made the offer to me, he said, before you decide, he said, there's certain things at Notre Dame are not negotiable, and I do not stretch this one iota. I said, what is not negotiable? He said, don't think you're going to come here and change Notre Dame. He said, number one, we don't take transfers. Number two, we don't redshirt. We don't have an athletic dorm, an athletic training table. We do not have good football facilities. We don't want to improve them because we want somebody to come here for our weight room, not because we want them to come here for our chemistry department, not because of our weight room. He said, furthermore, we're going to play the most difficult schedule we find. We expect to win. When Penn State canceled this, who did we schedule? Florida State. He said, the other thing is not negotiable, that we have a policy at Notre Dame. The head football coach is not allowed to make more than the president of Notre Dame, and the president of Notre Dame is a priest that took the vow of poverty. They paid me $95,000. By 6th year, because we'd had success, they raised the president's salary to $135,000 so they could give me a raise, and I paid them $75,000 because I had 3 children in school, and free tuition did not kick in till you'd been here 5 years. But he didn't say anything that would keep you from winning. He didn't say you could only play with 8 and everybody else had 11. What he said, no matter what you do, you're going to have problems, you're going to have difficulties, you're going to have obstacles. I don't care where you are, you're never going to get away from your problem. As I say, don't tell people about your problems because 90% don't care. The other 10% are glad you got them. So you just move on. But the biggest thing of every place I've turned around, and true at Notre Dame, you go in there, they usually have a low self-image. To me, the most important thing we can do for our children, for our athletes, for people around, is to get them to believe in themselves and raise their self-confidence and their self-image. Because when you go into a losing situation, people are basically insecure. They criticize everybody else. They find fault with everybody else so they'll look better by comparison. What you have to do, you have to create an environment where they start feeling good about themselves, confident in themselves. They start lifting other people up. We had enough talent here in 1986, my first year, to win the championship. And the mistake that Notre Dame made was they did not keep Jerry Faust as part of the alumni office. The guy loves Notre Dame. He's a wonderful individual. Could never said anything but positive things about Jerry Faust. But the problem was the players didn't buy in to what we wanted to do. But the longer we went, they felt that I'm not going to change. Maybe they better. By the end of the year in '86, we were a pretty good football team.
Absolutely. And in 87, even more progress. You were in the national championship hunt late in the season before a few losses. So then entering, your third year before the 1988 season, how high were your expectations going into the year for that team?
Well, we went to the Cotton Bowl, and we lost the Cotton Bowl. We hit 10-0. We blew it, made some dumb plays. The next day I had to fly to Japan. I was coaching a Japan All-Star game over there. So when you're on an airplane for 15 hours, I reflected back. I went in that locker room after we lost. There was one player crying because Notre Dame lost. That was Chris Zorich. And he didn't even play that game. He didn't even play that year. He never set foot on the field one time. And on that airplane, I said, I have an obligation to put people like Chris Zorich on the field and put 10 other people around him with the same attitude. So when I came back, the number one thing was going to be the attitude. And Notre Dame asked me to write a book on what it was like to be a coach at Notre Dame. That was in '88. So we knew we were going to write a book. So we taped every speech or every talk I made to the team. When you read that book, The Fighting Spirit, I think it is, it was all taped because we didn't know we were going to write about a championship, but I remember saying to them before spring practice, when you come to Notre Dame, you don't come to Notre Dame to win some of the games. You don't come to Notre Dame to win many of the games. You come to win them all. And we should not have anything except perfection, and it has to be the case of each and every one of you. I think maybe the most important 4 words I can say to you, it's not about you. It's not about you. It's about other people. You walk in the room, I don't want your attitude to be, hey, here I am, look at me, it's all about me. No, it's about other people. How can we help? And it's going to be about Notre Dame. Notre Dame's going to be first and foremost, and I don't expect anything less. I wouldn't tolerate anything, and that's when it changed. That's when everything changed. It's amazing how things happen, but if you just really and truly have a faith and a belief, and you go from there. And one thing I did feel I did was I felt I taught the players to make sure they learned to love Our Lady on the Dome and to love the University of Notre Dame, because this is a special place. And for you to come here and think it's about you, no. It's the obligation you have to put forth the best effort you can all times. And I know people are going to be fired up. I know Michigan's going to be fired up. Man, they get to play against Notre Dame, and Shea Patterson transferred. I get to play against Notre Dame. But let me tell our team one thing. It really is motivating to play against Notre Dame. I can get excited. But what is greater to be able to play for Notre Dame? When you get a chance to play for Notre Dame, nobody should be more motivated than you because you're representing Our Lady's school. They get a chance to play against it one time. So nobody should be more motivated than a Notre Dame football team.
Well, speaking of Michigan, the first game of the 1988 season was here at Notre Dame Stadium against the Wolverines. It was a close defensive battle that the Irish won 1917. How important was that win over that team to the trajectory of the season and establishing where that season was headed?
We opened up with Michigan 8 times when I was here at the University of Notre Dame. We won 5 of them, one unbeaten and a tie. But once we beat Michigan, they could then turn to the Big Ten. We're for the national championship. We're not in a conference. But that was very, very important. That year, we beat 6 teams that finished in the top 10 in the country. 6 teams in the final. We beat 3 number 1 teams or number 2. And if they were number 2, it's because we were number 1. And playing the University of Michigan, they were like number 4 in the country. And we had a little guy named Reggie Ho. And the smartest, he's now a very successful doctor. I visited with his parents about a year ago in Hawaii. But the smartest thing I did, I told the groundskeeper, do not paint that goalpost, because if you do, we may not be able to make it, because his leg wasn't that strong. But here we are. He kicked 4 field goals in that game. And I said to the team after, all the athletes we have here, the talent we have, and you're counting on a 5'4", 112-pounder to carry you? You've got to be kidding me. But he did a great job. He got us through. Then the next week, we go up and we play Michigan State, also a great football team. Anthony Johnson, my fullback, gets hurt in the first series. Braxton Banks, a second-string fullback, gets injured on the second series. So we don't have a fullback. We're on the road. And at halftime, we taught Tony Brooks how to play fullback and made a great comeback and ended up beating them, and we're off to the races.
You were off to the races, and the most famous game from that year, obviously, was when Miami came to South Bend in October. Miami hadn't lost a regular season game in almost 3 years. They had, beaten Notre Dame pretty good the last few previous times, including in the regular season finale the year before. Going into that game, how confident were you that Notre Dame could win, and how did you make your players believe that Notre Dame could beat Miami?
To me, I think number one is having a faith and a belief. And there's so many things that happen. That Catholic versus convict, that bothered me because it was not accurate. And I don't know how people keep saying Catholics versus convicts when it's not accurate, because honestly, not all our team was Catholic. No, wait. I got to take you through that game. So we have a luncheon before every game, 3,000 people to sit down lunch, and then be another 1,000 sit in a hockey stand. And all we did is I'd get 3 athletes up, and they'd talk about their experience at Notre Dame. It was a wonderful opportunity for them to learn to speak in public, to express themselves. I remember when Craig Henry got up, he said, instead of talking about his experience at Notre Dame, he went into a tirade against me about how unfair I was to kickers. He said everybody else travels with 3 kickers, but no, Coach Holtz only travels with 1, which was true because he did the punting, place kick, he did it all. And he said we're the only school in America travels with 3 priests and 1 kicker, and the second one let go. It kept going on. And when I got up, I said, Craig, I want you to understand one thing. If you kick better, we'd only need to travel with 1 priest. But, but it was that type of environment where we had fun joking. But I'll never forget, it was in the Joyce Center. I go from my office to the last second to go in, and I sit down. I'll never forget this. The priest gets up and looked at me and said, Coach Holtz, my name is Father Leo, and I do not remember his last name. I remember Leo because that's my middle name. He said, my name's Father Leo such and such. I'm a Catholic priest. I'm a team chaplain for the University of Miami. I have been for several years. We've won X amount of games. We plan on winning tomorrow. And I want you to understand God does not care who wins this game. Let us pray. And he said a nice prayer. When it came my turn to get the program. I said, Father Leo, I agree with you completely. That was a great observation. God does not care who wins this stupid football game. But I want to promise you, his mother has great interest in the outcome of this game. So now we go to a pep rally. We go to the pep rally, and at the pep rally, they have to have it outside because the crowd's too large. And they had problems with the microphone, and I remember I said, because of poor microphone, I said, I want you to do three things. I want you to behave like great sportsmanship like you always do. You're the best fans in the world, and the way you treat people, do not change that because it's Miami. Number two, I want you to cheer louder than you ever cheered before. And number three, I want you to go tell Jimmy Johnson we're going to beat him like a yard dog. Well, it's about 8 o'clock, and the next morning I get up headline and said, Lou Holtz said we'll beat him like a yard dog. I thought, oh, that did it. But then we went back to our team meeting before, and I said to him, why do you think I said that? And I said, let me tell you why. Tony Rice, how many fumbles you're going to have, how many interceptions, who's going to jump offside. Okay, on defense, who's going to get an interception? Yeah, I write it down. Who's going to get five? I wrote it down. And I said, well, we get 6 turnovers. They get none. We're going to beat them. Because having confidence that you're going to win is absolutely critical. And on our game plan, which I approached every week, and they understood it, but the last thing on the game plan, how to win, number one is we have to be the most physical team on the field. Number two, we have to be the best fundamental team. We got to control turnover. But the last thing is we don't flinch. You must believe that we're going to find a way. So now we get down and we're warming up. Now, I did the same warm-up as I did Ohio State, but we had 2 different entrances. I never thought about one. We should have warmed up the other end, but Miami had this plan. The last thing we did was we punt the ball. I looked down, Miami still running play, we'll punt the ball. The minute we lined up punt, they come running down, they knock Rocket Ishmael down, and next thing you know, we have a big fight. A big fight. Now, the people getting a fight are usually the third teamers. They aren't going to play and then go back to the dorm and say, yeah, I kicked his ass. Just. Now, I use 3 words of profanity, hell, ass, and damn, and they're all in the Bible. So I don't feel I'm doing anything on that. So now the fight. Now we go up. I am so upset. Here we are. We're the host. There's nothing in this world that should provoke this fight. I don't care what they did. There's no explanation for it. I'm so embarrassed, and I just can't believe you did that. And then I said to him, if anybody does anything but show great sportsmanship in this game, you'll never play again at Notre Dame. Not this year, not in the future. I mean it. Don't test me. Now, I want you to go focus on your teammates, but don't do anything except go great sportsmanship. Now, I never said this for 15 years, but the players let it out, and I can't deny it. Then I said, now, after the game, if the ARS wants to fight in the parking lot, that's fine. And if they do, you save Jimmy Johnson's ass for me. I don't want anybody else. It came out. It came out. And the players went running out on the field. I had a great pep talk, and I wanted to give them that game over. They went running out. And once that game started, and I'll say this, there was nothing but class, and there was no showboating on Miami's part or on ours because they had to be focused. But the point I was going to make, the end of the first quarter, they had an All-American tackle named Cersei. And they're walking down the end of the field, and Frank Stamps told me this. At the end of the first quarter, they're changing ends of the field, and Cersei said to Stamps, this game's going to go down the wire, isn't it? Why? Because our players were convinced we were going to win. We're not going to be intimidated. And Miami felt exactly the same way. And so it was a great game. It went down. The fumble by Cleveland, that wasn't a bad call. The bad call was by Jimmy Johnson on a fake punt on 4th and 4 because I told the team somewhere along the line they'll flinch. They'll say, I got to trick them because we can't beat them regularly. And when they tried to run a fake punt, they're saying, we can't beat you regular. You're too good for us. Now, next thing you know, we score. But I got to tell you this also. That wasn't a touchdown, their last score. That was an incomplete pass. I didn't realize that until they showed me the film on it. But it was a great win. But we had a lot more to go yet. We had to get through Penn State. We had to get through Southern Cal out there, et cetera.
Well, the Miami win, 31-30, obviously one of the greatest in Notre Dame history. And after the game, when you were interviewed on the field, you deflected any credit, and you didn't take credit for the win. We have the clip of that interview, and we're going to watch it for a second to see what you attributed the credit to the victory for.
I can tell you, it was the spirit of Notre Dame that did it. It wasn't me. I only get credit for the losses. She gets credit for all the wins. That's a great job.
All right, let's watch the clip.
Let's go down to John Godfrey. John.
Lou, biggest upset in 30 years, biggest upset of your career.
Well, I don't look on it that way. This was won by the Notre Dame Spirit. This game was won by the Notre Dame Spirit. You know, to the student body, to everybody that's been here at Notre Dame, it's the Spirit that did it.
But you did it also. You were able to run the ball against him and get to Walsh. How?
Hey, our players deserve a lot of credit, but it's the Spirit of Notre Dame. And that's what we sold our players on. That's what it was.
You certainly did believe. Congratulations, Joe.
So while we all obviously agree and believe in the Notre Dame Spirit, I think you deserve a lot of the credit too, as do the players. That game in 1988 against Miami, was that the moment when you felt like, okay, we've established that Notre Dame is really back where we belong?
You don't win a national championship. You wake up one day and you're a national championship, and how you win it, you don't have to be the best team in the country. You have to be the best team in the stadium 13 straight weeks. And that's all. That was one win. That doesn't mean that now that we're number one, I called the NCAA and said, now we're number one. I assume our touchdowns are worth 9 points. If we fumble the ball, they'll give it back to us because we're number one, and that's not the case. What happens when you're number one? Everybody expects more from you, expects you to be better than anybody else. They study your strengths, emulate it, study your weaknesses, attack them. You want to be able to sit back and enjoy the fact you're number one, and it doesn't work that way. One of the great things about being number one, you come out of your office, and it's late, it's midnight, and you're exhausted, and you look up, and the lady on the dome, but also in the dorm, as long as you're number one's highlighted up there. And you look up at it, even though it's snowing, even though it's June, you still appreciate it. But we still had an awful lot to go. And I told the team this, every time you win a football game, the next one becomes more important. In other words, Navy now became more important in Miami, because if we lost to Navy, it doesn't happen. But each time you win, the next game gets bigger and bigger, and eventually we end up with Southern Cal. We're 10-0, number one. They're 10-0, number two. So it doesn't do anything unless every time you win, the next game's going to be more important than the last one.
Well, obviously went on to win the national championship in 1988. As you said, should have won several more a few years later. I think if we had a college football playoff, probably would have won a couple more.
We would have been in 8 or 9 of the years, which is good. But let me say this about the Southern Cal game. We go out to Southern Cal, and they have a great football team, and it's the game of the year. We are always seem like game of the year. But I had told 2 players, if you're late one more time, I've run you, I've done everything possible, and I've had it. If you're late one more time, your fault, my fault, bus driver's fault, heart attack, I don't care. You're not playing. I shouldn't take you now, because they were late for our Thanksgiving dinner before we got on the airplane to go to Southern Cal, and I wanted to say a prayer because we had a lot to be thankful for, and they came in 45 minutes late. And I said, you're late one more time, that's it, you ain't playing. Well, we have one more meal to go. And our leading ground gator and our leading receiver showed up for the meal late. Now, I didn't discipline. I've never disciplined anybody in my life. I've never disciplined my children. But I am going to enforce your choices. To my children, you don't do chores. You're choosing to stay in Saturday night. So when you stay in Saturday night, why'd you choose that? That isn't very smart, why you choose to stay in Saturday night. But it's your choice. Choose to do drugs, drop out of school, join a gang, get tattoos all over, get arrested. You're choosing to have difficulty in life, and stop blaming me. I didn't make those choices for you. It's your fault. So they made that choice. You aren't going to play. And the next morning, we took them out, and we put them on the airplane that morning of the game. And when that airplane took off, I said to myself, Lou Holtz, that was really a dumb thing to do. You're leading ground gator and you're leading receiver on an airplane. Next time, learn from this. Next time, put their ass on a bus. They got home in 4 hours. They should have taken them 4 days. days to get home and have more time to think of it. But the defense and Tony Rice, everybody else responded. Then we went out and played West Virginia. What I remember most about championship game, the day before the game, we went to the stadium, and we have a ritual. We always give them a camera. They take pictures. Then we have the coaches' touch tackle game, and I would spat my shoes, which I didn't allow them to do. I'd spike the ball. I'd do all the things I didn't allow them to do. But then we signed each player, each senior. We signed 3 underclassmen to carry them off the field when the game was over. We practiced carrying the seniors off the field. And we won the game. They're carrying them off the field. I'm walking middle field, and somebody grabbed my hat and took off with it. And I took off after him as fast as I could. And I didn't know I could run that fast. But I ended up catching him, and I got my hat back. I later saw him a couple years later. He said, Coach, he said, was that hat that important to you? I said, what I did after every win, I took the hat I wore and wrote, I take my hat off to you, the date, the score, the opponent, and my signature, and give it to charity. Can you imagine how much money that national championship hat would bring to charity? And that's why I ran his ass down and wasn't about to stop.
Coach, we'd love to talk to you all afternoon, but you have another speaking engagement at 4, so we're going to have to get you right out of here. Unfortunately, can't hang around and talk to the crowd here, but I'm going to bring up Dolly Duffy, and as the executive director of the Alumni Association, the last thing as she comes up, we need a score prediction from you for tomorrow for Notre Dame and Michigan.
Oh, I think Notre Dame, I had to predict the score on TV. I think Notre Dame will win this football game 27-13. That's my prediction, 27-13. And as I always told our team before a big game, this sucker doesn't have to be close. We don't know at the TV to make this a close game. Go run their ass out of the stadium. You know, I have a very busy schedule. My wife, I'm doing TV again with Mark May. I'm speaking. I'm vice president of Zotec, and I'm trying to take care of my wife, trying to get my golf game straightened away. But I did tell my wife, when I get old, I can't do this anymore. But as long as I'm young, I'm okay.
Lou, 2 words. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well,
I got to tell you that this man is amazing. He's tireless. He's always quick to say yes. We've asked him probably too many times to do things, and his kindness abounds.
Well, Notre Dame always says thank you, but you pay Charlie Weiss. I don't understand that.
All right, everybody, give it up for the great Lou Holtz. He's got to get out of here. He can't take